Let's get a little philosophical today. What forces made you the person you are? Was it religion, parents, school, science, maybe a cult you joined, or a random conspiracy theory? Well, for me it was one particular magazine when I was growing up. This is the Kazdoy Closet. I'm Kazdoy. This is my closet full of all the stuff that I love. And today we're going to talk about Mad Magazine and how it made the Kazdoy you see before you today, for better or for worse. Now, I would love to say that I have all kinds of great Mad Magazine items to show you. Unfortunately, I don't. I do have this one compilation, of which they made many. This is called Mad About the 60s. But this will help me to illustrate why this magazine was so influential on me. And for one thing, they spoofed everything. And the more popular that thing was, the better it was for them to spoof it. For example, they have a satire of 2001: A Space Odyssey called 201 Minutes of a Space Idiocy. And you see they even have Fred Flintstone showing up in the beginning section here. And they also have comments here about what the monolith means, and the ape saying, "I think I know what it means. I have something intelligent to say. I feel like quitting this stupid movie right now." So a lot of times in their satires, they broke the fourth wall and drew attention to what they were doing. But the artwork's great, and they really studied the film to get the satire just right. And then at the end, they realize what the monolith really is. And they say, it's a book, How to Make an Incomprehensible Science Fiction Movie and Several $1 million by writer, producer, director Stanley Kubrick. Now, I love 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's one of my top 10 films, but that doesn't mean I can't appreciate a good satire, which is often done as a tribute. Along the same lines, they also did a satire of Star Trek called, of course, Star Blech. And again, we have the great drawings by some of the great artists and a great satire of that show. Another reason that Mad Magazine was so great is that they appealed to various age groups. For example, look at this parody where they kind of mash up My Fair Lady and the advertising business. And they use song parodies. So you'll see at the bottom here, it'll say, "Sung to the tune of On the Street Where You Live." Now, a lot of kids reading this, like when I was in grade school and middle school reading this, I had no idea what My Fair Lady was. I had no idea what these songs were. But they didn't dumb it down for me. They still went ahead and used it, so I could still appreciate the humor of it, even though I didn't really understand what they were talking about when it came to the ad business, actually, and also to My Fair Lady, and I had no idea what these songs were. Now here's another example how they didn't dumb it down, really, because this is a parody of West Side Story called East Side Story, where they're talking about, it's really another mashup. This time you have to know what the songs in West Side Story are, because the whole thing is just a musical sung to the tunes of the songs in West Side Story, but it's also a parody of communism and the UN. So as a young kid, you might read this and think, I wonder who this Khrushchev fellow is, and I wonder what this is all about. And it might lead you to not only look into what West Side Story is and what the songs are, but also look into what are the politics they're talking about here. So believe it or not, Mad could be actually educational, though I'm sure they would hate to think that. And then, of course, for the kids and all of us, you still had comics, like this one here. And you still had their famous comics like Spy versus Spy, where there weren't even any captions. So it really appealed to various age groups. Another great thing about Mad Magazine is one of their favorite targets was the advertising business. And they really exposed advertising for kind of the phoniness that was behind it. Here's a good example. This is a cigarette ad for Likely Strife cigarettes. And it's really making fun of how they portray cigarette smokers as being very macho. And then at the bottom, you can see that this doctor is telling them that it's going to make you ill. So it looks like an ad, and it's funny, and it also exposes the truth behind the ad. Another great thing about Mad Magazine is they didn't take themselves too seriously. They were self-deprecating. As in this ad here, it's sort of a parody of an ad that was pretty popular at the time. And it says, what sort of man reads Mad? And of course, it's not the upper class guy with the suit and tie on. It's the guy underneath the car who's trying to fix it. That's your typical Mad reader. So they never took themselves very seriously. And in turn, that kind of taught you, don't take yourself that seriously. We don't. I mean, look at how they always refer to themselves as the usual gang of idiots. That's how they refer to their artists and their writers. The next thing I appreciate about Mad Magazine is that they targeted pretentious people and things and phony things. So even in the middle of the 60s, here they have a magazine called Hippie, the magazine that turns you on. What do you do about God after you finally find him? 20 new middle-class occupations you can put down. 42 flower arrangements for your head. And they also poked at the phoniness of some of these things in like religion, for example, the 10 Commandments revisited. So it says here, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And then there's a photograph of people. It looks like they're kind of worshiping the Beatles. Or thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. And there's an actress worshiping her Oscar award. So poking fun at hypocrisy in society and hypocrisy among celebrities also. And speaking of hypocrisy, politicians were also a favorite target of Mad Magazine. Here's one. Ron Reagan, isn't he the ex-movie star who wanted to be president? And then down here you see that this is an ad parody for Ron Reagan rum to help you forget about Reagan. But in case you think that they are poking fun of only conservatives, they had a lot of fun with JFK as well. And again, you'll notice that they're referring to some Gilbert and Sullivan songs here. So you needed to know as a kid what's going on with JFK and the White House, and who's Gilbert and Sullivan, and what songs are these? So the staff actually of Mad Magazine was mostly liberal, but many people believe they poked more fun at liberals than they did at conservatives. And then sort of continuing the phoniness and hypocrisy theme, one of their most popular features was this Mad's snappy answers to stupid questions, where people would have, there'd be a situation and there'd be somebody asking a stupid question and 3 smart aleck remarks to give to it. So as a kid, growing up, of course, not only did you appreciate the smart aleck remarks, but you also thought, yeah, why are people asking me stupid questions all the time? Now, the only other real item I have is this series of trading cards that I bought not too long ago. And I'm not going to show you all of them, of course, but on one side, it's a cover, one of their covers. And on the back, it's one of their ad parodies or one of their articles. But I am going to point out a couple things just to sort of further illustrate what I was talking about. Also, you'll notice that the early issues look different. And it was called Tales Calculated to Drive You Mad. And then later on, they got the Alfred E. Newman character in there. So here's one example of how Mad usually sort of copied advertising techniques as they were still making fun of them. For example, the bold letters here, don't buy this issue. And then down here, the fine print says, buy the one underneath. One of their favorite targets also was politics. So here's a picture of the White House, and there is a sign on it, "This country is out of order." Another example of how they made fun of themselves. Here is somebody in the classroom, and he has to write over and over again, "I will never read Mad in class again." And at the very bottom it says, "I will never read class in Mad." Another thing I appreciated as a kid was their use of puns. For example, here is their spring issue, and so of course, what do they have on the cover? A spring. Here's another one that's kind of a pun. It's from 1968, and it says, "Take a trip," with this issue of Mad, and has a banana peel, which has a double meaning because some people were known to smoke banana peels to get high back in the 60s, and also take a trip because, of course, you're going to slip on a banana peel. And once again, Mad Magazine making fun of themselves and kind of making fun of the readers too. "Wanted, new reader with a revolting sense of humor, no intelligence necessary, apply within." So it made you feel like you were sort of a part of this club in a way that was making fun of everything, including yourself and including the magazine. I hope I did justice to Mad Magazine and how influential it was to me and so many other people in my generation. I mean, there's a reason why people like Howard Stern and Jerry Seinfeld say that the biggest honor and tribute of their life was when they were on the cover of Mad Magazine. It still exists today, mainly as a subscription basis, but they do put out compilations like the one I showed you today on a pretty regular basis. One good thing about them is they were never mean-spirited about anything. It was always in good fun. And I think the important thing about it is it reminded people to, look out for the phoniness and the pretension and the manipulations of the world, but also have a sense of humor about it. Have a sense of humor about yourself. Don't take yourself too seriously. Now, later on, I did graduate to another humor magazine, which was edgier and darker and much more adult, but that will be for another episode. Meanwhile, feel free to leave a comment or a suggestion, maybe your own reflections on Mad Magazine. Leave a thumbs up, don't leave a thumbs down. Subscribe would be great. Feel free to share this episode with your friends and neighbors. Otherwise, I thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.